Okay, so today's lesson is actually going to be Hebrew insights, and we're going to do a comparison and contrast for the Hebrew words for truth and lies. And the Hebrew word for truth, which is emet, it's one of my favorite words in the Hebrew language just because it was the very first word I learned. And the word for lie is actually going to be sheker. Now, one thing these two words do have in common, it's this. Each respective word is comprised of 3 letters apiece. And if you're unfamiliar with these words, I do have them on the infographic on the screen of the video, just so that way you can familiarize yourself with how they're spelled and what the letters are and what they look like, because there's some details of those that are going to be important later on. And we're going to start with Amet. And Amet is made from the first, middle, and last letters of the 22-letter Hebrew alphabet. And there might be a chance that you're thinking, okay, so how can mem be the letter that is central to a 22-letter alphabet? Because realistically, if you're going to split the sea, so to speak, split the deck, you would have 2 sets of 11. So realistically, that should make 2 center letters, right? Well, here's the reason why rabbis and sages have considered mem to be the middle letter. There are 5 letters in the Hebrew language that have what is called a sophit form or a final form. These letters, whenever they end a word in Hebrew, they will actually appear different than if they're thrown in a different sequence of a word. And those 5 letters are Kaf, Mem, Nun, Pei, and Zadi, just FYI. So if you were to take those 5 characters and shuffle them back into the deck, split it down the middle, split like Moses would the Red Sea, you would actually find that Mem would indeed be the center of the Holy Language alphabet. But again, I want you to think about Amet, and with it being comprised of the first, middle, and last letters of the alphabet, think about what that should invoke or imply to us when we try to define the word truth. Now, I've heard it said in English that the truth it's everything from A to Z. It's bookend to bookend. But I think the Hebrew spells a more beautiful picture of that because it uses that central letter, because it gives air and light to the whole situation or the whole story. It's the first and last. And it's showing that it's sequenced, it's showing that it's steady, it's paced, and that there are equal points. Something I think is interesting too is the letter mem, the central letter that we're talking about. That's the same letter that starts the word Messiah or Mashiach. And so here, even in this alphabet, we would find that Christ, the Messiah, he's the heart, he's the core of the word truth. And there's also some writings that I've found in the past few years that say the word Emet is kind of an acronym that God uses to represent time. And here's what I mean by that. You have the letter Aleph. Aleph is the beginning letter, the beginning initial for the name Adam. You have Mem, which is also the beginning initial for the name Moses. And they say that somehow, some way, this letter Tav represents what the Jews would believe to be the coming Messiah, or for us, the Messiah that's already came and who is coming again. But I want us to think about that for a second. You have Aleph, which is the first letter of the alphabet. The first man, Adam, came from God. Then after that, you have Moses, who came to Israel with the Word of God. And then even with the Jewish expectancy, they would have the Tav, the final one who is coming, who is actually the Word of God himself. And go back to a comment I made earlier. Remember me saying that Amet shows like spacing and pacing? It's a straight order sequence. There was Adam in the beginning. And then we go a couple millennia down the line. We have Moses. And who was it that appeared a couple millennia after Moses? We have the Messiah. And something you may not be too much in the awares of is Hebrew itself was also a pictographic language, meaning that the letters themselves actually represented thoughts, ideas, things. And the letter Tav, actually, whenever you go to some of the older and oldest scripts of the Hebrew, some of them would call like the Paleo, the shape of Tav was actually in that of a cross. Pictographically, Tav actually means cross, it means covenant. So we find all that even encoded in the word for truth in Hebrew. And there's one last feature I want to stop and look at when it comes to the word truth, the word Emet. All three letters, individually, they're able to stand on their own. Aleph and Tav both have almost like 2 feet at the bottom that they're able to stand on. They're almost bipedal letters, if you will. And if you look at Mem, it's actually got a flat base that it can stand supported on. These elements not only can stand together and support themselves, but individually they're able to stand on their own because that's what truth is. It's supported. It's something that is pure. It supports itself. But let's make the transition and focus our attention to the word sheker, the word for lies, falsehood. None of those letters, as they appear in scrolls, not a single one of those letters would actually be able to support themselves like the three letters do in Amet. Now, I do know in the infographic for this video, the letter Shin has a flat base similar to what Mem does. But again, if you look in these scrolls, the font that is used for the letter Shin, it's actually almost like on the top of the point of a top, or like a tip of a triangle. It would fall over. The letter Resh would fall over because there's a single down point. And so whenever you take a look at the word Sheker, they have to be collective. They have to be able to support each other. And if they aren't supporting each other, something else has to prop them up. And if you want to perpetuate lies, that's exactly what it is you have to do. You have to keep giving strength to support something that will fall over on its own because it has death in it. It has decay. Another interesting thing I find about the word sheker, it's actually made of 3 of the last 4 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Ironically, the only letter of the last 4 letters of the alphabet that it doesn't include is the letter Tav, like the word Emet has. Maybe there are some elements of the truth that lies just can't be involved with, that they just can't hold. There's only so much distance that a lie can get to the truth for it to be able to maintain itself. And what's more to me in my mind is if you take a look at the word emet, the word truth, the very first letter is the aleph, the second letter is the mem, the final letter is the tav. If you actually go through the Hebrew alphabet, that's the same sequence that you're going to find them. First the aleph, then the mem, then the tav. If you go to the word sheker, you actually find that the 3 letters that comprise the word sheker, they're actually out of their sequential order as you find them in the alphabet. Because I think that even shows the nature of the lie itself. It's a scrambling of the natural order. It's a scrambling of the truth. It can't be in sequence. There's always got to be a twist or a scramble, like I said, so to speak. And one last final point I want to make about the word sheker, and it's going to be its numeric value. And again, gematria, I'm highly interested in gematria, but I want to stress that it should be something that is a small portion of your studies, not the overall. It's meant to be a supplement. It's meant to perhaps be a vitamin, not the main course. It's almost like a spice. Spice really enhances what it goes along with. It is used to elevate what it's being used with, not to be the main course. You're not going to eat a bowl full of cinnamon because that's not what it's for. You would be able to have a main course of salad. And if you are looking at the Word of God, I want us to be able to nourish ourselves on the Word of God and use these other minor details, like gematria, to help enhance and elevate the actual Word of God. And again, Sheker is numerically 600. And that is exactly the same numeric value to the word La Rasha, And Rasha is the word for the wicked one. And think about what that invokes. The wicked one is equal to lies. Talks about the only thing Satan ever invented, the only thing he ever created was the lie. But I also want us to look at that too because it shows that the one who is wicked will find lies to suit them and their cause, almost like a hand to a glove, hand in hand, glove in hand. And lies, it shows that that's going to be the not just a common tool, but it's going to be the go-to tool. That they're going to disrupt the order. They're going to bring a scrambling to the process. They're going to throw hiccups and pauses into what should be a natural ebb and flow. And so that's the quick insight we've got for today. I thank you for your time. If there's anything that you have questions, comments, maybe something you want me to take a look into, I'd be more than happy to. I'm not saying I'm going to be smart enough to throw something together, but I'd like to hear maybe what you have thoughts wise. So thank you for your time. Be blessed.